Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something pretty wild, a message that basically says our entire physical world, it's an illusion. Now, this message supposedly came through back in the late 80s from a scientist who was communicating from a reality beyond our own. And trust me, what she had to say, it really challenges, well, everything we think we know.
So it all kicks off with this really startling claim. The message came to a group of researchers from a scientist. Her name was Swejen Salter. But here's the twist. She was talking to them after she had already died. Yeah, reaching out from, a new plane of existence to try and explain the real fundamental strangeness of it all.
And get this wasn't just some random spirit communication. Swejen Salter said she was a scientist, but from a planet called Varid, which she described as a parallel version of our own Earth. So from her new, non-physical reality, she was basically trying to bridge the gap, to explain the huge, profound difference between how we see the world and what it's actually like.
All right, so let's get into her first and, honestly, most crucial revelation, our illusory material world. The main point? Our solid, predictable, physical world, it is absolutely not what it seems. She flat out called it an illusion. So, Swejen laid it out like this. What we think of as solid matter and what we measure as energy, they're not two different things at all. Nope. They are one and the same force. She said to imagine a central source, kind of like a sun, just pouring out this single energy. And as that energy spreads out, its vibrations start to slow down, and that's what creates, well, everything we see and experience. But here's where it gets really interesting. Look at the third piece of this puzzle she throws in. It's not just matter and energy. Swejen claimed that consciousness, our very awareness, is also just a manifestation of this exact same fundamental force. So think about what that means. Everything, physical stuff, energy fields, even our own thoughts, it's all just different frequencies, different vibrations of one single essential reality.
Okay, if you thought that was weird, her next point is even stranger. She talked about time, but not like we think of it. Not like a river we're all floating down. For her, time is more like a tangible substance, something almost physical that's connected directly to our bodies. She said that from her perspective, where she is now, spirits don't experience time in a straight line. The only way they can even tell time is passing in our world is by watching our bodies get older.
Okay, moving on. This all leads to a huge, obvious question, right? If any of this stuff is true, why can't our science find it? Why can't we prove that these other realities even exist? Well, according to Swejen, the answer is frustratingly simple. Our whole scientific framework, it's just incomplete. We're essentially trying to solve a giant cosmic puzzle, but we're missing some of the most important pieces. So naturally, the researchers asked her, hey, can you help us build better devices to talk to you? But she said it was impossible. And the problem wasn't the blueprint or the design, it was the materials. She said our planet, which she called Terra, is literally missing key elements that exist on her homeworld, Varid. She called them Hahn particles. It's like she can't give us a recipe for a cake if we don't have any flour.
And that brings us to what might be her most personal and powerful revelation of all. What actually happens to how we see this physical life once we've left it behind?
Her explanation here is actually surprisingly relatable. Just think about it. You wake up from a really vivid dream, right? For a few seconds, maybe even a minute, it felt totally real. But then, as you get more and more awake, it just dissolves. It becomes this weird, fading memory. Well, according to Swejen, that is exactly what happens to our physical life after we pass on. It just slowly starts to feel like a dream we once had. In fact, she said this feeling is so strong, so profound, that many of the other souls in her new reality, they can't even be convinced that their old lives on a physical planet were ever real. To them, it just feels like it was all some collective dream they all happened to share. Nothing more than that. So, what are we supposed to do with all this? If our physical world is just an illusion, some temporary state that's gonna fade away like a dream, what does that mean for us? Right here, right now.
I think the ultimate takeaway from Swejen Salter's message is really this. Our life, with all its solid stuff and what feel like super important events, it's just one fleeting experience. We're just passing through a temporary, kind of dreamlike state inside a much, much larger and more fundamental existence. And that leaves us with one last, pretty provocative question to think about. If this reality, with our bodies and our sense of time, if it all just fades away in the end, then what part of your experience, right now, is the part that's truly eternal?